Okay, today's Q&A is about fish and meat. And the question is, tell me what I need to know about eating meat and fish together. What could you tell me about that? So, the Gemara says it's considered a sakana, dangerous, to eat meat and fish together. And I'm going to keep using the word meat, but for these purposes, poultry and meat is the same thing. So that's the general rule. We can't eat meat and fish together. Now, as relates to eating meat and milk together, the Chachamim made certain kinds of restrictions beyond actually eating them together to prevent people from mistakenly end up eating them together. Excuse me. And the place can talk about whether those same halachas apply to mixtures of meat and fish. And I'm going to give some details of what I'm trying to say. So there in many cases, it's also for a person to eat meat on the same table with another person who's eating dairy. In many situations, that's considered also, again, because one person might eat from the other person's plate since they're eating together. Now, technically, that isser does not apply to meat and fish. So the ikra din, the letter of the law, is that you could have a kiddush or a Shabbos meal where some people are eating fish, gefilte fish, and the other people are eating coconuts. Technically, that would be okay. The common custom is not to do this, but by technicalities, it actually is okay to do that. Okay. Now, another thing is that after we eat meat, you need to wait 6 hours before you eat something dairy. That does not apply between meat and fish. So right after meat, you can eat fish. What about the other way? When a person eats dairy and then they want to eat meat, then the requirement there is you have to eat something and parv and drink something parv and also check or wash your hands. Now, all that is to make sure there isn't any leftover milk in your mouth or cheese in your mouth when you're eating or on your hands when you're eating the meat. So there's different opinions whether that is required between meat and fish. I mean, I said before you can go straight from meat to fish. The question is, do you have to do this kind of a cleaning in between? And the Shulchan Aruch says you are required to do that. And the Ramah says, no, you're not really required to. The din is you're not required to check your hands and eat something parv and drink something parv. But he says the minig is to eat and drink something to separate between them. And the Chacham Sadman says that really it's enough just to drink something as a way just to clean out your mouth. There shouldn't be any significant pieces in there when you go from one to the other. Now, what happens if you have something that's made with fish? It's parv. Overall, the ingredients are parv, but it has some fish in it. But it's such a tiny amount that the fish is going to be batal b'shishim, and you can't be tasted. So the Taz says, bitul b'shishim doesn't work over here because this is a safety, health issue, and therefore bitul b'shishim doesn't apply. But the Shach says that no, bitul b'shishim works over here. If you can't taste it, there's no isser. And most of the later points can follow this Shach who says that you can bitul b'shishim works for questions of meat and fish also. Now that issue sounds theoretical, but a very practical application of it is Worcestershire sauce. That traditionally the way you make it is you ferment anchovies. Anchovies is a kind of fish, so you ferment anchovies and then you blend them into the sauce. And when you make it that way, the fish will not be batal b'shishim. And therefore, if you make your sauce, your Worcestershire sauce that way, you cannot use it on steak, which is what it's meant to be used for. It is a steak sauce. But lots of companies don't actually make it that way. And what they do is they take a bunch of flavor chemicals that give the taste of this sauce, and they have no fish in them at all. And they put a tiny bit of fish into it just so they could make it look more authentic by having a tiny bit of fish in it. But the amount of fish in there is so small that it's batal b'shishim. And so according to the Shach that I said a second ago, the Shach who says that bitul b'shishim works for fish, then this would be considered parv, and you could eat it with meat also. Now, another thing, the difference between meat and fish as compared to meat and milk, it has to do with tam that's absorbed into a utensil. So we all know that if you have a pot that was used for hot fleishigs, you can't use it for dairy or the other way around either, because the tam that's in there from the first thing that you made will spread to the other one, and you'll end up having milk and meat cooked together. But that idea does not apply to meat and fish. So if you cook chicken in the oven, you could bake fish right afterwards. As long as the chicken's not in the oven at the same time, you could bake one right after the other one. You don't have to worry about tam. Now, but that only applies if the only question here is a matter of tam. There's flavor that might be left over and absorbed into the walls, but it does not apply when you have residue of actual meat or fish left behind. And for that reason, if you have a grill board or the grates on a barbecue and use it for meat, then you cannot use it for fish unless you clean it thoroughly that there's no residue behind. We don't worry about time being left behind, but we do have to get rid of the actual any residue of meat or fish before we use it for the other type. And that's also the reason why the common practice is that we use a different plate and fork when we switch from fish to meat in the middle of a meal, and to make sure we have no residue left behind of one when we eat the other one.